There is a house set on a hill. A house unlike anything anywhere else in the world. Its windows that glowed like the fire beaming from the windows during the winter. Its halls were filled with joy, with music and the sounds of family laughing. It was a place of belonging, a place of safety, a place of perfect peace. The master of that house, he was good. Good in a way no one else in the world was good. He was strong. He was kind. He was generous to all that were in the house. And in that house lived the master and his only son. And everything that the master had, the son got to enjoy. And everything the master loved, the son cherished. Wherever the master walked, the son walked. And when the son spoke, the master's authority could be heard. However, down in the valley, it was a lot different. Down in the valley, the air was thick with dust. It was thick with despair. There were shouts. There were chains. There was the crack of whips that would echo off of the valley walls, far from the house, far beyond the master's land. This valley was covered in darkness. And here lived a cruel slave owner, a different kind of master, a taskmaster who actually opposed everything the good father, the good master stood for. Where the master brought life, the taskmaster brought death. Where the master offered belonging, the taskmaster offered chains. Where the master welcomed others as sons and daughters, this taskmaster demanded slaves. His authority was built on lies. His authority was built on fear and the brokenness of those trapped under his dominion. And among those who were trapped under the weight of this man's rule was a young man named Elias. Elias had never known freedom. He'd never known rest. He'd never known a day without fear. He was born as a slave. Every morning he woke as a slave. Every day he worked as a slave. And even when he slept, what very little sleep actually came, he slept as a slave. And you see, the taskmaster, he never let Elias forget it. He would shout, "You belong to me. Your father was mine, your grandfather was mine, and you," as he would tighten the chain around Elias's neck, said, will never be anything but mine. One night, at the end of his rope, Elias did something unthinkable. He ran. As his bare feet pounded the dirt and his heart exploding in his chest, having finally worked up the courage to escape, his eyes were locked on the house set on that hill, that beautiful, warm, inviting house that he had only heard whispers about. And for one heartbeat, he tasted what freedom might actually be like. Stepping from the tree line, and with the crack of a whip, the taskmaster caught him, dragging him through the dust, throwing him to the ground, and pressing his heel into Elias's neck. "You dare run?" the taskmaster snarled. "You think I would just let you go? Don't you know how great your debt is? I own you. You are nothing but a slave, and you will be nothing but a slave until the very day you die." And Elias believed him. However, at dawn, something began to change. Something happened that no one in the valley had ever seen happen. A figure appeared on the road leading down into the valley, walking from the master's house, and for the first time, there was warmth. The slaves in the valley froze in disbelief. The taskmaster stiffened, unsure why he felt such fear. You see, it was the sun, radiant, calm, unshaken by the darkness of the valley. The sun walks down into the valley, straight up to Elias, and with eyes full of compassion says, "Elias, come with me." Elias, though remembering the pain of the whip and touching the bruise on his neck with a tear rolling out of his eye, shook his head. No, I can't. I don't belong to you. He'll come for me. My debt is too great. The taskmaster steps forward with a sneer on his face, chains clinking as he says, "Oh, the price is very high indeed. If you want him, you must take his place." And as the taskmaster finished speaking, the valley fell completely silent. No, you can't. If you do this, you will die, shouted Elias. And with a gentleness never before pointed in Elias's direction, the son looked at him and says, "Elias, I know, but I choose this." The taskmaster, worried that he would change his mind, quickly seizes the son. Chains that were meant for Elias were slammed against the son's wrist. The whip cracked and the valley trembled, and as the son is being led away into the darkness of the valley, Elias hears him whisper, "It is finished." Elias, unsure of what just happened, collapsed to his knees. The chains that had held him for his entire life were gone. A weight he had never fully recognized that he was carrying was gone, and for the first time, he could breathe. For the first time, he was free. But now what? 3 days later, rumors began to buzz and swirl throughout the valley. The taskmaster was pacing nervously in his fields. The rest of the slaves were huddled in groups, whispering to one another. The ground itself seemed to shake with anticipation. And then, like a trumpet heralding a king, news erupted like thunder throughout the taskmaster's kingdom. The son was alive. Death could not hold him. The chains had been broken. The debt had been paid. But there stood Elias, on the road between two kingdoms, free, yes, but ultimately unsure. What now? Where did he belong? As he stood staring at the house on the hill and occasionally looking back down into the valley, he wondered, was he welcome there? Was he wanted in the house? Would the master of the house even invite him in? Did the master there even need another servant to serve him? Finally, with extreme apprehension, Elias approached the gate trembling, barely able to raise his hand. He went to knock on the gate, but before he could, the gate swung open. And standing there before him, with eyes full of joy and not an ounce of judgment, the master stepped out. "Elias," he said warmly, as if expecting him. Falling to the ground, Elias exclaims, "Master, I am not worthy. I am only a freed slave." But before he could finish, the master knelt and took Elias in his arms. "Elias, you are not merely free. My son did not step into the valley to just release you from the bondage. He came so that you could be my son." The next thing Elias knew, the master was placing a robe over his shoulders, placing expensive sandals on his feet, and a signet ring on his finger. Bringing Elias into the house, the master sat him down at the place of honor at the table and declared, "Elias, from this day on, you will live in this house as my child. You will sit and eat at my table forever. You are my son." And the master's voice echoed across the kingdom, "For if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed." From that day forward, as Elias walked the grounds of the master's house, not as a slave, not as a stranger, but as a son, The same hands that once shook with chains now held the hand of the gentle Father. And every time he heard an old voice calling from the valley, "Come back, you're still a slave," Elias simply looked into the eyes of his father and said, "No, I am free indeed."